Hey there, y'all. Hey. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. I want to welcome you to the Warm Handshake with Adrienne Simpson. And I am Adrienne Simpson. Y'all, listen, I am so excited today to invite you into the conversation with my really good friend, Kierra Taplin. I want to welcome you to the show. Hey, Kierra, thank you for joining me
Hey
today.
there. Thank you for having me. This is awesome. I love it.
Number one, it's been too long since we talked.
It has. It
Too long.
has.
And friend, I just remember the last time I was at your house was some
Probably pre-COVID.
pre-COVID, some
Yep.
fantastic event because you are the queen. Like we're gonna talk about your real business, right? Your
Uh-huh.
real organization, but you are the queen of fantastic and amazing events with aplomb and fantastic detail.
Yes. I love it. And when I tell you we shut down during COVID, COVID really did
Yeah.
create a lot of changes for us
Mm.
personally.
Okay.
I'm probably one of the few people who I think came out of COVID feeling revitalized, feeling like I needed
Mm.
COVID. My
Yeah.
marriage needed COVID. It was just it ended up being such a blessing for us.
Yeah.
And when I tell you we shut it down, we shut
Mm.
it completely down. So I think that's probably what worked in our favor because that means no one came to our house. We didn't go anywhere
Yeah.
I mean, literally we just started coming out of COVID.
Mm.
So yeah, so it was definitely the result of COVID that you haven't seen me. But yeah, it
Well,
was definitely a blessing for us. So
so
I'm
I'm
happy to be
I'm
back at
no, I'm
work.
glad to hear that. Like, so I'll say, again, you're a family of three. We're a family of
Hmm.
three, right?
Hmm.
And so COVID for us meant that we became more insular, right?
Yes.
Me, my
Yes.
husband, and my daughter really, we already spent a lot of time together. We spent more time together. So we had less
Hmm.
distractions. I
Hmm.
won't say we shut it completely down, like we did certainly during COVID.
Hmm.
But we spent like more time together
Yes.
and learning more about each other and playing and with an only child at home. Right now my
Hmm.
daughter's like, mommy, I'm bored. I said, well, go
Hmm.
in there and clean your room,
Right.
right? But we're coming up with ways for us to just encourage and engage with each other
Uh-huh.
first,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Before we do that, well, listen, so we already kicked it off, right?
Uh-huh.
But I want you to start by telling, I introduced your name, but tell the people who you are and what you do and what your
Yes.
organization is.
So I'm Kierra Taplin. I'm actually a grief advocate, and I have a nonprofit organization, Footprints Foundation, that was founded by my husband and I back in 2014. And
Mm,
what Healing Footprints is, it's an organization that originally was founded to support families who have experienced infant death. And that is babies that are born alive and pass away within that first year. The organization was started because of my personal experience with infant loss. I was in deep grief when I started the organization. In that moment, did not realize that I was grieving because time had gone on. We lost our firstborn son in 2006. So years had gone by, and I thought I was okay. We were
mm,
still married because when it first happened, we were actually newlyweds. And the social worker at the time, she warned us that most marriages do not survive child loss. So
mm,
because we were still married, we honestly thought that we were doing well. But what happened, which if you've experienced any type of grief, especially the loss of life, the world continues to go on.
right.
So at some point, you have to move on. And that's all we did. We just moved on. So because we were still married, we still were able to go to work. I was still able to show up and smile. So I thought I was okay because I had moved on. And at the time, I was working at IT and I was on a business trip. At this point, I think I was commuting back and forth between New York City and Atlanta.
Wow.
And I was in New York on a Mother's Day, and when I say I had a complete breakdown, I
Mm,
had a complete breakdown, and it's because I was alone. I had no one with me, no family, and it was Mother's Day. And I remember
yeah.
that particular day, it rained all day long, and I
Mm,
walked to Target. I don't know if I've ever even told this story, but I went on a walk to Target. This is in New York City. At the time, I was in Brooklyn, and I went for a walk to Target. And Target had to have been about 5 miles away from my
ooh,
apartment, certainly too far for me to be walking. But it was raining, and I cried the entire time
Mm,
there and the entire time back. And when I got back is when I realized, one, how far I had walked. Two, I had gone to the store and I didn't accomplish anything because I didn't have
mm,
any bags, no nothing. But when I got back, I felt light.
mm,
So I actually laid on the bed in my apartment, and God gave me the most clearest vision for
mm,
healing footprints. And well, I mean, the name, the colors, and it's not even something that I had ever thought of doing. And the
wow.
word that he placed in my spirit is that if I start this foundation, I'll find my healing.
Mm,
And I sent my family this long text message because I'm a little long winded, so you might have to pause me. But so I sent my family this long text message sharing what had just occurred to me because it was kind of scary. One, because I
yeah.
had never experienced that before. I certainly did not know in that moment that I was grieving,
Mm,
and to receive such a clear vision was a little off-putting for me because I'm used to one being in control of everything. So this felt kind of like out of control to me because it's
mhm,
not something that I had planned. It's not something that I had a desire to do. So in that moment, I got ball rolling for the organization. And in every step of the way, I've always known, one, that is what God has purposed for me. And two, it's where my healing rests. And every step of the way, every connection that I've made, every
mm.
misstep that I've made, every learning experience, it has brought me this fulfillment and this healing that I never knew imagined. So
Now let
what I
me ask
have
you this
done
though.
through the organization is the organization provides services for families who have experienced infant death. So
Yeah.
our core services are financial assistance with infant burials. We
Mm,
also provide angel gowns, which we partner with other organizations to provide angel gowns. And what that is that's the garment that the babies are buried
mm,
in. So we provide that service. We also purchase headstones for unmarked graves. That's probably our largest service because we get a lot of requests, not just from babies that were recently lost, but we get requests from families who lost a baby 10, 15 years ago and they were
wow.
never able to purchase a headstone. So that's
Mm,
probably one of our biggest services. And then on top of that, we provide grief support. Grief support is that lane where I personally have found my footing, and God has opened up doors in ways that I never imagined.
friend,
Yes.
let me jump in here
Yes.
because you have said so much and
Hmm.
I'm just sitting here overwhelmed because I
Uh-huh.
know you. Like, I know you
Yes.
personally. I know you're a
Yeah.
ball of fire. I know that you
Yes.
take an idea and run with it, friend.
Yes.
I know that you can dress up a pig and make it beautiful. Like, I know all these things about you.
Right. Right.
But I've known you for many years, but I've
Uh-huh.
never heard you tell the story about Target first and foremost. So
Yes.
you say
Yes.
you hadn't
I'm not
told it
sure if I've ever
publicly.
shared that story. Yeah.
I've never heard that before, and it was just amazing. The second thing I've never heard you say is that you came in and God gave you the vision in a very
Yes.
clear download. And it's
Very
for
clear.
many people who receive visions or receive
Mhm.
information
Mhm.
in that way
Mhm.
where they know it's of God, right? They say it
Mhm.
comes very clear. It's
Yes.
something that you had never done before. So I was excited to hear you describe that. But I want to
Mhm.
ask you this because again, this is an organization that you and your husband started many years ago. And you said that there was like a 8-year difference between
Mhm.
death of your son and for you starting the organization. Had
Mhm.
you ever encountered or experienced any type of therapy, or were you doing like many of us, right? And just
Mhm.
picking yourself up and going because you got a beautiful smile, friend, and you always bring
Mhm. Mhm.
energy. But
Mhm.
sometimes for us, that's a mask.
Right. We
Mhm.
we did therapy. I did individual therapy and we did couples therapy. Well,
Mm,
actually, we didn't do couples therapy. We did group therapy. And after the very first session, my husband was like, "Okay, that doesn't work for him."
mm,
He didn't like that setting. He didn't feel
yeah.
comfortable. After that, the two of us never sought counseling until years later, when all the
Mm,
other issues appeared in our relationship because we did not deal with the grief. So we
yeah.
were in at least a good 10 years before the two of us had couples therapy at that point. But I personally had therapy at several points. And it actually is through therapy that I gained a deeper understanding of grief because a year after we lost our son, so we lost our son about 6 months after we got married. So we were newlyweds at
Oh,
the time.
goodness.
A month after my son died, my father passed away all of a sudden. So we were not prepared, none of that. Maybe about 6, 7 months later, we decided to move to Atlanta.
Oh,
So relocating, another form of loss.
all the big things.
All the big changes. And
Mm,
then so all of that happening at once. However, because you see the movement, right? We were still married. We were able to
mhm.
relocate. When I relocated, I transferred with my job. So
Okay.
we're moving. So I'm thinking that I'm okay. But I deep down inside, I knew I wasn't. So
Mhm,
that's why I always personally sought therapy. And that's when I
mhm.
was able to see that link between all of my life experiences after the loss of my son and how I carried that grief
Yeah.
throughout a lot of those experiences. And that's how I actually gained a deeper understanding of grief. So I was okay in my grief because I think I did what a lot of us are taught to do, that life
Mhm.
goes on.
That's right.
I'm in this context, you'll hear me at this as I discuss this stage of my journey. I'll often talk about moving on because that's what I was doing.
Mhm.
However, I now know that the goal is not to move on. What you want to do is move forward. So
Yes.
that's when things started to shift for me when I realized, no, I don't want to move on because moving on looks and feels a lot like busyness. So as long as
Mhm,
I'm
mhm,
busy, oh, I'm okay. As long as I can show up, oh, I'm okay. As long as I can still report to work, oh, I'm okay. But
mhm,
really, you're not because you're not moving forward. And it was in that moment that I realized I was just going in circles. I was unhappy at work.
mm.
Me and my husband, we were married, we were still together, but we weren't communicating on a deep level. And one night, and this was prior to COVID, we had a conversation, and it was in that moment that I realized that we both actually were afraid to love each other
Mhm.
deeply
Mm,
because we were so afraid of feeling that pain of that loss that we
mm.
had experienced with my son. And we one night sat on the floor in actually the same room here. And I think we talked for a good 8, 9 hours
Mm.
nonstop where we took turns crying, we took turns saying, how we felt. And it would probably was, I'm not exaggerating when I say it probably was like 10 years later, was the first time that we actually sat down and talked about the loss of our son.
Mhm.
And I want to make sure that I highlight here that the experience for both my husband and I was completely different.
Yes.
How we handled the grief was completely different. How
Mhm.
the responsibility that we thought we held after the loss of our son was completely different. And we didn't talk about it until that night. And that led
Yeah.
to like things like couples therapy, all that good stuff. And it definitely got us into a better place for sure.
I am so,
Yeah.
I am so thankful that you are so open to sharing
Mm-hmm.
your journey.
Mm-hmm.
And again, this is the warm handshake, y'all, with Adrienne Simpson, where the sole purpose of this platform, this show, is to introduce my audience to people that you need to know.
Mm-hmm.
And Kierra Taplin is absolutely a person that you need to know on so many levels. And so,
Mm-hmm.
again, I just thank you for not only sharing your story. We're talking about you and your husband, and your relationship, and the loss of your son, but we're also talking about how you are moving forward in your words, right? And
Yes.
how you started the process of healing, the
Mm-hmm.
download for healing footprints, for how you started the process of healing, and how you are working to help other people. Would you just talk a little bit about the transformation that has taken place in your life that has allowed you,
Mm-hmm.
a person who is active and just vibrant and professional and just driven,
Mm-hmm.
and how the loss of your son impacted your life and how you've been able to move forward to help others? I know we're talking a little bit about that, but I really
Mm-hmm.
want you to lean into the purpose of your
Oh,
organization.
yes. I absolutely love grief. I it and it sounds crazy when I hear myself say it, but I love it. And it's
Mm,
because I've gotten to see the beauty in it in my own life. So because I got to that place and I remember what it felt like to be hopeless, to feel like
Yeah.
I'll cry all the time, that I'll never be able to walk through a baby's department again, that I'll never find that joy, that internal joy ever again, because I remember what that felt like to get to this place of beauty where I can
Mm,
see the joy, I can feel it, and then I can give it to others. It's brought me to this place where I absolutely love grief. So
yeah.
now I'm in this place where I'm like, Lord, okay, is this really what you have planned for me? Of course, there are other things that I would love to be doing with my time. I promise you.
Yeah, yeah.
But and I will say there have been moments where I have tried to escape it. I've tried to go back to corporate America. I loved my six-figure job with my direct deposit. I loved it. I don't want to even say I love being told what to do, but I know I love when other people,
It's
were in
different.
charge. So
Yeah,
it
it's
don't work out,
different.
I can blame them. As an entrepreneur, if it doesn't work out, you have no one to blame.
It is you.
Yes, it is you, it is all you. Everyone is looking to you because and I had those moments where people reverence me as an expert.
Yeah.
Or I remember the first time I was introduced as a philanthropist. I'm like, a who? Like, who's that?
Me?
And I but it's just where it has where this journey has landed me. When I say I am 10 toes down, I go hard for the people that I connect with. And I
Yeah.
think it's accepting that this is my purpose and being okay with that. And when you see the fruits of your labor,
Mhm.
when you know that you've spent, that you were up all night writing a proposal, and either you get it or you don't, because I get a lot of no's. But I'm just knowing that I'm pouring my heart into it, and everything that I do from the heart. I lead with my heart,
Yeah.
and it being vulnerable for me is what allows people to connect with me. I often try to put them off on other people. I'm like, okay, I got some references for you. And I remember
Mm-mm.
one of the first times I gave someone a reference, she hung up, called me right back, said, I don't want your reference. I'm like,
Oh,
what you mean? I mean, with an attitude, I'm like, what happened? She was like, no, I called because I want to talk
yeah.
to you.
I'm talking to you.
I was like, oh, okay. So that actually, that train of thought, changing my mindset is what led me to creating this lane of grief for me
Mm,
personally, where
okay.
I've been able to monetize my gifts. Even through my foundation, I now have corporate clients. I get this is something that I never imagined possible. I had a old personal client, a private client who works for a big company, and she introduced me to one of her executives who, when the company went through a layoff,
Mhm.
they called me to give grief support
Oh,
to
I
their
love that.
employees.
I don't love it, but
I
I love
never
it for
thought
you.
I never thought of that. I'm like,
Wow.
who would think? And since then, I've had 5 different corporate clients who have called, and none that I reached out to, all by referral, because either I spoke at an event and someone was there and they remembered me, so they
Yes.
gave me a referral. I'm like, this is not even a lane that I ever imagined. But in
Oh my
all
God.
areas, I'm talking about grief, all the different types of grief there that we experience. In that case, the loss of a job. We
Yes.
don't often associate grief with losing a job. We do what we're supposed to do, move
Yeah.
on, go find another job. But it's not that easy,
No,
especially
it's
when
not.
you put so much into a career. You've helped build the organization, you've helped build the department, you love your AVP job title, and now it's
Yes.
gone. A
Yes.
lot of those things can manifest as grief. So it's important to discuss it, to attack it as that. And I absolutely love it. I love it.
I love that you share that though, because so as a career coach, right, executive
Mhm.
coach for leaders in professional development, I see it all the time.
Yes.
People do mourn the loss of their jobs. They mourn the
Yes.
loss of prestige. They mourn the loss of
Mhm.
6 figures, right? They mourn the
Mhm.
loss of comfort that they
Mhm.
get from knowing that direct deposit hits, like you just said, and being able to do the
Yes.
things. And for
Mhm.
some people, they've been in their role or their existence for so long that when
Yes.
something happens that changes it, they don't know
Mhm.
what to do. And that's where
Mhm.
you are perfect, right?
Yes.
As the grief coach,
Yes.
as a person who understands that there's
Mhm.
change and that
Mhm.
people don't necessarily know how to manage that. I love that for you.
Yes.
Um, could you talk a little bit about the services you provide, friend? And again, depending on what you're comfortable with sharing, right? If you want to talk about one-on-one or group or
Uh-huh.
those corporate experiences,
Yes.
please share with the audience like how they can connect with the services you provide.
Okay. So I do provide one-on-one grief support. I right now I'm not currently I'm not because I'm on a corporate a 6 month corporate account, so I am dedicated to that. There's a big difference between supporting a corporation and the private practice. I do, however, have some long-standing clients that I'll squeeze in from time to time, but I definitely do one-on-one support. And your grief does not have to be associated with child loss.
Mm.
Earlier, I said that is how I entered this grief space, but it is wide open for me. One, because I personally have experienced different types of loss. So I've been laid off. So I know what that felt like. I know what it felt like to keep trying to go back. And for me, it was associated with my identity. I loved
Mm.
who I thought I was in my job.
Yes.
And the challenge for me when I moved into this nonprofit space, especially associated with grief, is that I thought I couldn't bring this. And when I
Mm.
say this, I mean this big bright light that I
Your
know
whole
God has
self.
given me. I'm like, I can't possibly take that into a grief space. I'm supposed to be down and
Yeah. Yeah.
solemn. So
Yeah.
that's what I did for about 2 years. And I
Oof.
received a message on Instagram for Healing Footprints. Someone sent me a message and they said, I want to know. It was a young lady. She said, I want to know who is the face behind this organization.
Oh.
Because at no point had I revealed who I was, how I thought, none of those things. And it was in that moment that I realized I am my organization.
Yeah.
This is me. This is who I am. So it took me unlearning what I thought the people needed and just be myself, show up as myself. And that's what has happened for me throughout this journey.
Mm.
It's how I connect with both my corporate and my private clients. I have corporate clients, I have corporate executives who reach out to me now outside of that corporate setting because they want to talk to me personally.
Mm.
And it's because
Okay.
I show up this same person everywhere.
Yeah.
And that takes courage, actually, especially when you believe, especially with a corporate background. I think we have this perception of what we need to be when we show up in the workplace, and oftentimes that's not who we are. Especially for
Right.
me, I was a Black woman in IT. I more than likely was the only person in the room that was. And it's like, who are you? Like, why are you here? I
Right.
got those looks often because this is not what I should look like. And then on top of that, you want to be big, bright, and bubbly and laugh and smile.
Right.
No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
Right. All of
Please
it.
take off that yellow blouse. Put on white and so
Listen,
so
I
that
get it.
that has worked for me to be myself. I will not say that that was easy. It was definitely challenging, especially those first few years, because I
Mm.
wanted to be what I thought this space needed. And when I made that connection and decided to be myself, the doors flew open. When I say
Mm.
flew open.
Authenticity.
Yes,
Friend,
it
listen,
makes a difference.
I wanna just pause this for just a moment. We've had so much goodness from you, and I knew we would. I knew we would. And so before we dig into authenticity, y'all, I want to just take a quick break for our sponsors. I want to give our sponsors a chance to just share some information with the audience. We'll be back in just a moment.
Hey there! Are you an executive or entrepreneur looking to increase your income and revenue? Well, you've come to the right place. We're the LinkedIn Pros, a specialized agency that's all about crafting personalized LinkedIn strategies to help you achieve your revenue goals. Our amazing CEO, Adrian, is a pro at empowering business owners to position their brands for maximum impact. And she's also a whiz at helping professionals land their dream high-paying jobs. We're here to help you build your professional brand, expand your network, and achieve your wildest career aspirations. Don't settle for just getting by. Give us a shout today, and let's get started on your journey to success.
All right, y'all, we are back. We are back. And listen, again, I want to welcome you back to the Warm Handshake with Adrian Simpson. I'm your host, Adrian Simpson. And today we've got the beautiful, the wonderful, the effervescent Kierra Taplin of Healing footprints, y'all. We have talked about everything from child loss to grief counseling and support and what that looks like. Y'all, we were talking about authenticity before the break. And Kierra, I really want to allow you just a few more moments to lean into that. And then I've got a question for you as we were talking about the support and work that you do for corporations. So talk to
Mhm.
us just a little bit more about your being your authentic self in spaces where they don't look for us to be authentic.
Right. And that can be challenging. The thing with the first step to being authentic is to make sure that you are honest with yourself.
Oh,
You have to do everything with me is gonna come back to self.
yeah.
You have to spend that time in the mirror. Do I really like what I'm doing? Do I love this person that I have become? What's driving you? What motivates you? When you think about all of those things, ask yourself, is that your authentic self?
Mm,
Is that really how you want to show up in whatever space you have been led to show up in? And that's important. Be honest with yourself. And that's something that I did. I did that self-work that also led me to therapy, because then that's when I questioned why I kept trying to go back to corporate America.
uh,
And it was it
mm,
was the safety. It's a safe place.
yeah.
I can blame someone else if it doesn't work out. But I was so uncomfortable there. And
Mm,
after about maybe 15, 18 years in IT, I had grown uncomfortable in that space. Like, I don't even fit anymore.
mm,
I'm not interested in being here. I'm not excited to be here. So that actually helped lead me out the door that, okay, Kierra, give that up. Please stop trying to go back. Please stop. I was bombing interviews because I just didn't care.
you didn't
I'm
feel
like,
it.
please leave it alone. And
Mm-hmm.
and and that was a part of me discovering who is my authentic self. That's when I realized that I was hiding behind my title because
Mm,
it sounded great, the work that I was doing. When I stepped into a room, even in my corporate job, I can feel the room shift,
mm-hmm.
and that feeds my ego that was happening. So now, and I just mentioned the word ego, but be real about what feeds your ego and how
Yeah.
that makes you feel, and how we enter certain spaces because everyone claps for us. So what happens when no one is clapping for you?
Mm.
What happens when no one is interested? What happens when no one is going to co-sign? That
Yeah.
when people think, oh, that's a horrible idea. So when we talk about authenticity, make sure that we're being honest with ourselves. And once you discover that, that's the hardest part. A lot of times we're faking in front of other people because truly we're faking with ourselves.
Well, you fake with yourself, right? And then you're not gonna get any pushback there
No.
because you're in a corner, right? You're balled
Mm-hmm.
up. I love that. And so
Mm-hmm.
so you have really evolved, right? If we're being
Definitely.
honest, you've
Absolutely.
evolved
Absolutely.
from that person in corporate America, right, who was really encased
Mm-hmm.
in a costume, right? But
Mm-hmm.
many of us have been. I mean, I'll speak
Yes.
for myself. I'm not going to speak just for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'll say for myself the same experience. And so let's talk
Yes.
about how now, as the owner, as the founder of Healing Footprints, how you've evolved and how you have become authentic. You talk about therapy, you talk about doing the work, and now
Mm-hmm.
you're doing it and you're helping other people in those
Mm-hmm.
grief-stricken places really come into their own. And so talk
Mm-hmm.
about touched on it a little bit before, but your relationship with corporations and how you're helping broader audiences now.
In most of my corporate relationships, what I've been able to do is teach people how to pivot.
Mm,
Oftentimes, grief becomes very uncomfortable because we're in this space where it's like, okay, so what do I do next?
mhm,
And generally, grief is something that's happening to us. Usually, someone else is causing it. The trauma is being inflicted from someone else. The loss that we've experienced was something that was out of our control. So it often can leave you in a place of victimhood. So it's like,
mm,
okay, so we can feel like it's not something that we can control. And what I teach my corporate clients is, how do you allow this change? Because grief is nothing more than a large or small change or loss. How do I allow this change, in this case, usually in the corporate space, how do I allow this change to serve me?
mm.
How do I take what is happening and allow it to serve me? Does
That's
my
good.
mission change? Does my goal change? What happens to me? so that I can now take that information and move forward. How do I take this experience and move forward? And that's usually what I spend most of my time with my corporate clients, helping them to understand how and not and when I say and it's important when I talk about my corporate clients because it's not just the people who are laid off that are affected. It's the
True.
people that are left behind that have to watch it. Because a lot of
Survivor's
times,
remorse.
yeah, they have
Mhm.
survivor's remorse. They're wondering, are they next? Also, we have our executives who have to make those decisions. We
Mhm.
see them as the big bright monster. Oh, they love it. They don't care about, but that's a lot of times that's not the case. They have their own grief process because now they've built relationships with a
Right.
lot of these employees. So and it also highlights how grief, you and I could have experienced the same type of loss and respond in two totally different ways. So
Absolutely.
our grief journey is unique. That applies in every area of loss. So even in the job market, when I got laid off from my job, it was the entire department was let go.
Wow.
However, the experience for each and every one of us is different. And it's important to realize that. And that's why I love that I have these opportunities to highlight that experience as grief. One, so that we can honor it in that manner, that we give each other grace because now we understand it. This is painful. This is difficult. This is not as easy as girl, go put your resume up and go get a new job. No, it's not that easy. Now
That's
that
right.
may be the case for some, but for others, it's just not that easy. And if we honor this experience as grief, I've realized that we tend to give more grace to others as well as ourselves when we label it for what it is.
Yes. Well, when we're honest with what it is and we realize that it is a normal feeling
Mhm.
for
Yeah,
some, right? It's a
yeah.
feeling of loss. And I'll tell you, my mother is my biggest cheerleader.
Mhm,
I've been laid off 4 different times in corporate America, friends. So when I
mhm.
tell you I track exactly what you say, I do.
Uh-huh,
But there's a company right now, and I haven't worked for them in many years. If I mention the name, my mother will have a fit. She will just go off because for her, she just
uh-huh.
feels like they did something to her baby.
Right, right.
And so my
Yeah.
perspective is, at one time I probably did feel like that earlier in my career, but
Mhm,
I
mhm.
also know it's a business decision.
Yes,
Right. And
yes.
so what I did was created opportunity for me to be able to figure that out and
Mhm,
move forward in my own way. And I
mhm.
love that you are helping people to do just that,
Yes,
to move forward and to purpose
yes.
within themselves and to figure out their next steps. It's so
Yes.
needed.
Yes, I absolutely love it. And what I've discovered is even in those corporate relationships, when I have those discussions, I often open up the my services to provide support afterwards. Because one thing I'm very careful of is that I don't want to trigger someone and then leave them
Hmm.
hanging.
You need to
So
hear.
I always, even in speaking engagements that I have, I always make sure that I provide after event support. So when you go home and you think about it, or because I said something and you stuck a pin in it, but then when
Mhm.
you come back to it, now you're left traumatized. So it's like, now what do I do? So I make sure I always make myself available. And what I have discovered about grief, whatever grief brought you to me, I more than likely am going to uncover other areas that you've experienced grief, and now you're wondering, what do I do now? And
Mhm.
that's what's had happened with my corporate clients. I'll have these discussions about job loss, and then they realize, oh, I had a family member that passed away, and I never dealt with.
Mm.
I actually, this is my third job, and I never dealt with losing the first two.
Wow.
So it does, uncover a lot of those areas, but I think we just put band-aids on a lot of our pain so that we can move on. And then
Mhm.
you meet someone like me who loves tearing it all off because I want to get to the bottom of, because I want to see this big, beautiful life that I know you'll have if you dig deep and do the work. That
Mm.
you can love life, you can find joy, you can find your purpose, whatever that may be, if we just pull back those layers and get to the deep rooted reason for why you're here. Because that's all I'm here to help you discover. Why are you here?
Well, friend, I think this is a perfect perfect
Yeah.
place for us to put a pin in the conversation. I would love for you to share now with this audience how they can reach you, how they can connect with you, how they can find you if something you've said today struck a chord with them and they want to learn more about how to unpack grief in a healthy way and how to move forward.
Mhm.
How can they find you?
You can find me. I am on LinkedIn, Kierra Taplin. My name is Kierra Taplin. So everywhere is Kierra Taplin. On Instagram, I'm Kierra Sine. My organization is Healing Footprints Foundation. You can email me at Kierra at healingfootprints.com. Because of the nature of the work that I do, I'm not as active on social media as I would like to be. And it's because I definitely try to protect the people that I work with and the people I work for. So I'm very careful of how I speak about grief in public for the reason that I mentioned earlier. I don't want
Mm.
to trigger someone. I don't want to be the cause of triggering someone and then leaving you
Yeah.
hanging, because it's actually very dangerous.
Mm.
And so I'm very careful about how I move. So I'm always there to be supportive. Definitely reach out to me. Email is a great way to connect with me. Definitely on all social media platforms. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn.
Oh, thank you so much, friend.
Yes.
And listen, I knew a little bit about what you were doing.
Yeah.
I've done my best to support you in your journey as I learn more. I'm excited to learn even more
Mm-hmm.
from this
Mm-hmm.
point forward, and just to continue to try to figure out ways that I can continue to support you in the work that
Yes.
you're doing, and to hear that you are blossoming into all of
Yeah.
these things. And I'm super
Yes.
proud of you, and so thankful that you graced the show today with your presence.
Yes, and I am equally proud of you. I must say, started. We tried a podcast. Podcasting is a lot of work. I do want to say that. I gave it a good shot. I loved it. It was. There's definitely a space in podcasting for grief, to discuss grief, but it's so
Mhm.
much work, friend. Yeah, it takes a commitment. So I definitely am cheering you on. If you need anything, I'm certainly here. I have other things that I can talk about if we need to. So, but I'm definitely here to support you. I absolutely love the work that you're doing. I have personally watched you evolve. That I love.
Thank
I
you.
love to see, because evolving isn't easy. It's
Mm-mm.
not something that many people welcome, especially when you have imagined what your life should be like.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of growing pains in evolving, and you
Absolutely.
lose a lot of people when you
Yes.
evolve, because there are
You
some
do.
things that I used to enjoy and I look back like, "How in the world did I enjoy that?"
Yep.
But that's part of evolving. So I love to see that. Love, I absolutely love you. You look beautiful. And yeah, thank you so much for having me. I totally enjoyed this. Before I leave, I do want to mention one thing about Healing Footprints, because Healing Footprints has been focused on loss. And last year, actually, it was in the height of COVID that we started a doula program, because
Mm.
doulas providing doula services is one way to curb infant
Yeah.
and maternal mortality.
Yes.
So we have a doula program that targets young mothers between 19 and 27, because that particular demographic has a higher infant mortality rate for
Mm.
Black and Hispanic women. So we have a doula program that we've been developing for that particular demographic. And that is I think, one of my proudest programs now for the organization. One, because it gives us that opportunity to focus on life,
Yeah.
and then so that we're not just consumed with loss. So I
Mhm.
love that it provides some balance for the organization. But I'm excited to see where that particular program grows. So if anyone is interested in where Healing Footprints is headed, because as I evolve, so does everything around me. So the same has
Absolutely.
happened for the organization. That is a great growth opportunity for the organization to focus on that particular area.
Friend, I am not surprised at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not. And thank you for sharing that piece too before we depart.
Yes.
I really appreciate it. Y'all, again, super, super excited and happy to have had Kierra Taplin from Healing Footprints on our show today. Again, I'm your host, Adrienne Simpson. This is the Warm Handshake with Adrienne Simpson. Y'all take care.
Thanks for tuning in to the Warm Handshake with Adrienne Simpson. Let's stay connected and continue the conversation. Follow Adrienne on LinkedIn and join our community of like-minded individuals.